should be, I feel duty-bound to mention that when I first got the email about the theme for this month's show, it said, "That's what he said." Dee, you back me up on this.
Yeah,
it said, "That's
I did.
what he said."
It did.
Thus, the male-centric nature of the story you're about to hear. When I look back at my formative and post-formative years, it occurs to me that I have been severely influenced by the forcible words of men more forcible than I. The first of these men is a likely candidate. My father was a lawyer in Warren, Pennsylvania, a small town in the northwest part of the state. As you're driving into Warren, into town, you'll see a sign that says, "Welcome to Warren, 15,000 friendly people." And right below that, somebody spray painted, "And one real asshole." My dad was not that asshole. He was a very friendly guy. Think Andy Griffith combined with Atticus Finch with a little Dick Van Dyke thrown in there. And in 1968, he had just embarked on a political career that would eventually land him in the United States Congress. But his first political position was actually Republican committeeman for Warren County. And one night at dinner, at the dinner table, probably after one of us kids asked him, "How much does this committeeman gig pay?" my namesake and father told us that you don't get into politics for money, you get into politics for public service, to try and improve things for the people of your town, your state, your country. Well, I was an impressionable sixth grader at the time, and I took these words to heart. I was determined to do anything I could to further my father's political career. Unfortunately and unexpectedly, I chose to go rogue. Just up the street from Market Street School, grade school where I was going, was the Democratic headquarters for Warren County. And I hatched a plan to tear down all the campaign posters in their entryway. I secretly enlisted the help of my 7-year-old brother Jimmy as the lookout. Now remember, this predates Nixon's plumbers and their dirty tricks, and clearly foreshadows the dirty tricks of people like Manafort and Cohen and Trump. What did I say? Treason. Anyway, when school got out on that fateful day, I stationed Jimmy on the sidewalk outside of the Warren County Democratic headquarters and ducked into the entryway. Immediately, I began tearing down all the elect Paul Jones and vote for Jane Smith posters. But making Jimmy my lookout turned out to be a tactical error. Because at the first sign of trouble, namely the approach of local Democratic chairwoman Mrs. Witkin, Jimmy bolted without even bothering to warn me that she was getting it. So Mrs. Witkin grabs me by the ear, drags me into the office where I was harshly interrogated. She asked me if my Republican father had put me up to this. And I uttered those now oft-repeated words, "No collusion." Actually, I don't think I used those actual words, but I definitely absolved my dad of any responsibility and didn't even rat my brother out for being an accomplice. Mrs. Witkin called my mother, told her what happened, said she had to come and pick me up. When my mom arrived, she tried to explain what might have, motivated my transgression, but Mrs. Witkin was louder than my mom. And, admit it, guys, I've worked the name of this show into every story I've ever told, and yet you've never invited me back for the best of storytellers. Does any of the other storytellers get that in there? This is bullshit. Anyway, she was louder than my mom, and Mom and I fled the office in disarray. Now, in 1978, my dad did get elected to Congress, and when I graduated from college in 1979, I moved in with my parents in Alexandria, Virginia, and got a job on Capitol Hill. It was at Capitol Hill that I fell in with a group of fun-loving political worker bees who called themselves Teenage Wasteland. 7 guys who had graduated together a couple years before from Georgetown and partied even harder than they worked. These guys, and they were now renting a house that had once been the Botswanian embassy. Actually, it was still the Botswanian embassy, but Botswana had run into a budget crisis, so they were renting the place out. It's a true story. My ties with Teenage Wasteland began and ended with Tim Gay, the charming and charismatic press secretary in my dad's congressional office, and also the older brother of one of my best friends from Warren, Tom Gay. Tim was probably 2 years older than I was, but in terms of life experience and sophistication, he was at least 10, it could have been 10 years, which is probably why I was so easily persuaded when Tim one day declared that we should jump in his car after work and drive 4 hours north to Warren to attend his brother's bachelor party. Once again, I had been swayed by the words of a forceful male figure. And this time, it almost got me killed. See how I did that for dramatic effect? Just lean into that mic. For you future storytellers, it's a little bit of a tip, a little bit of a trick. Try the trick. Got me killed. Anyway, the only way, the best way, and probably the only way to get from DC to Warren is by taking these Pennsylvania back roads heading northwest. And those roads at night are awfully dark and extremely windy. Now at 9 p.m., Tim and I found ourselves in a very rural area, rounding a curve with our brights on. Tim was at the wheel, and I was in the passenger seat. As we round the bend, a huge creature suddenly appears in our headlights. In the split second before impact, my brain registered cow, no, maybe hippo. It turned out to be a 600-pound pig. And hitting this thing was like running into a wall. I mean, we went from 50 miles an hour to 0, caved in the whole front of Tim's car. I mean, this is before, airbags, so thank God we were wearing seatbelts, or we would have both gone right through that windshield and a face planted to solid pork. Anyway, we get out of the car, and at first we're cowering behind the car because it looks like the pig might just shake this off and charge us. The thing is still on its feet, staggering around, wee, squealing like a pig, wee. Finally, it collapses into the ditch by the side of the road and dies. Tim and I come out from behind the car cautiously, approach the pig, come up to where this, and as we're standing there, staring down at this huge dead animal, pretty much speechless, us and the pig, this truck comes driving up the road and pulls over right next to where we're standing. The guy in the truck takes a gun out of the gun rack and gets out and walks over to where we are, and without saying a word, he pumps 2 rounds into the pig. And we're both like, hey man, come on, what the fuck? And he just says, better to bleed it out, saves the meat. With that, he gets in the truck and drives off. Now, obviously, we're both pretty shaken by how our evening is playing out at this point, but then it gets weirder. Out of the woods by the side of the road, comes this man, about 30s, probably 30s, followed by 2 small boys, all dressed in their Sunday best. Turns out to be the farmer and his 2 sons. And they've just arrived from church on a Friday night because they're Mennonites. Now, the 2 kids had spotted this accident because their idea of a good post-church activity is to sit above the road with a stopwatch and time the cars as they go by to see how fast they're going. Nobody had seen that the pig had gotten out of the pen until it totaled Tim's car. Anyway, the farmer apologizes about the car, and we get it off the road, and he takes us up to his house, introduces us to his wife, and then calls, not his insurance company, he calls his deacon. Because apparently Mennonites tithe a great deal of their earnings, but in return, one of the things they get is that church covers their car insurance. So the deacon says, sure, the church will pay for it. This guy drives us to a nearby airport, rents us a car, which we drive the rest of the way to Warren, attend Tommy's bachelor party, which is a whole other story. Interesting postscript. About a year later, at around 3 in the morning, Tim and the rest of Teenage Wasteland are coming home from a night of bar hopping to discover that what had once been the Botswanian embassy was now a pile of smoldering embers. An electrical short had burned the place to the ground. As for me, it was very soon thereafter that I actually attended a performance at the Second City National Touring Company in Georgetown, a place called the Cellar Door. I saw it and decided that my skills were being wasted as a direct mail copywriter, that whatever those people were doing, I wanted to do. Two weeks later, I called the Second City Theater, and I swear to God, this is true, Dee, Del Close, improv legend Del Close, answered the phone, told me that I should A, move to Chicago, B, take classes at Players Workshop, C, audition for Second City. That's what he said, and that's what I did. Thank you.